and welcome back, everybody. Hope you're having a wonderful start to your day or into your day whenever you are watching this. We're getting now towards the end of the week and the end of the year as we're rounding out 2022. So hopefully you've got your new resolution set for the start of 2023. But with the start of 2023 is going to come some very active weather that we're going to have to talk about here in today's video. So before we get to that, just want to start by saying thank you, of course, like I always do, for all the support over the past couple of weeks. Out of our past 4 videos, 3 of them have hit 1,000 views, and one of those actually hitting more than 4,000 views now. So that is a super impressive goal, accomplishment, and we will see if we can even build on that going into 2023. But as you can tell by the top of the screen, we have a lot of tabs to get through today, so we're going to go ahead and get to it. So let's start here by looking at satellite on this Thursday. Jet stream, very pronounced, very easy to see today. As you can see with this ridging in the east and this troughing in the west going on currently that we've been talking about really for the past couple of days. Another feature that you can notice here on satellite is this low pressure system that is actually producing some snow here into Nebraska. No major deal there, but definitely some snow in those areas. You can also tell we have some thunderstorms firing off here near the Gulf going into the Arklatex region of the United States. Currently no watches or warnings with that, just a marginal risk today. And as it's getting towards the end of the day, by the time this is actually uploaded, there shouldn't be too much of a threat left over with that. So we are not going to touch too much on that. Just wanted to mention it though. All right, so that's satellite. Let's go ahead and take a look now at our current hazards across the country. So like we talked about with that low pressure system moving through here, have some winter weather advisories ongoing for parts of the plains, especially into Nebraska. This is actually new, just had this flash flood watch issued here into portions of northwestern Louisiana and east central Texas, as well as a little sliver here of southern Arkansas. Also some very active weather ongoing on the west coast still. A lot of flood watches, warnings, and advisories into California today, with winter weather advisories and winter storm watches here into the higher terrains out west. All right, let's go ahead now and move on to this little this little system that I mentioned here in the beginning. Again, just want to give you a quick rundown on it. Nothing crazy, but of course, as you can see, some snow ongoing here across portions of Nebraska. That will continue onwards for the next couple of hours as the system begins to slowly weaken as it moves off to the north and east towards the Minnesota area, where we can see just a couple of light snow showers into Minneapolis going into the overnight and into Friday morning. But most of the snow has already fallen here in these areas, so I won't expect too much more, maybe another inch or 2 in localized spots by the time that you are watching this video. All right, so let's go ahead now and get talking about this really active pattern that we have ongoing across the United States and what we can expect here into New Year's and then going into next week, as we have a very likely severe weather event and maybe even outbreak potential going into the first week of January. So again, current conditions, this little system is moving through sections of the plains. We have storms firing here along the Gulf Coast, and then this next system is already beginning to move into the West Coast with rain falling and snow in the higher elevations. So we'll go ahead and move this into time a little bit. And as you can see here, these storms that are currently firing into Texas and Louisiana are eventually going to organize into a bit of a cluster of storms, or maybe even a organized line going into tonight and into Friday morning. We'll also have this continual, atmospheric river, as you've probably heard a lot recently, working its way into the Pacific. So we'll go ahead and move this out a little bit more. This is going to be your Friday afternoon. Line of showers here going from really, St. Louis up through Detroit and into even parts of Canada. If you want to know just how warm this pattern is, look how far north rain is getting into Canada here on New Year's Eve, on Friday tomorrow. Very interesting to see rain get that far this time of year. But with that, tomorrow, we're going to have a little bit of a severe weather threat again right here along extreme southern areas of the Deep South along the Gulf Coast, going from New Orleans over to Mobile, and even clipping a little bit of the Florida Panhandle there. So let's go ahead and look at future cast for that going into tomorrow. Again, we've got some of these storms already firing in Louisiana. Nothing severe right now, but keep an eye on that going into tonight. But as we get into the overnight, what we're going to see is that section of storms really cluster together and really continue to feed moisture in off the Gulf here as this line begins to organize a little bit into the overnight. Although I doubt we'll have many severe warnings overnight, definitely some thunder rolling through here, sections of or most of Louisiana, southern sections of Mississippi, and even showers up into the Memphis area. So as we get into tomorrow afternoon, why we have that marginal risk for severe weather is with maybe a little bit more daytime heating. Maybe this line here in the southern sections can get going a little bit as it pushes eastbound towards the Florida Panhandle, but still expect showers at the northern end of these states in the south from Mississippi to Alabama and Georgia going into your Friday. Also, maybe some quick showers moving in off the Atlantic into the Carolinas. But that line will continue going into Friday night before eventually kind of fizzling out, and we just have leftover rain moving into the Carolinas on New Year's Eve. So with this section of rain here, we do have a little bit of a flash flooding risk in these areas. So this is for tomorrow. Slight risk here for flash flooding through a big section of Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. So make sure you are prepared for if you're in a flood-prone area and you deal with this a lot, then just have a heads up on that going into tomorrow. And then that threat will decrease, but move further east into sections of the Carolinas, Georgia, and the Florida Panhandle on your Saturday. All right, so now let's go ahead and talk about the rest of this as it's going to move into the Northeast for New Year's itself. And then we're going to talk about this big storm that is moving in off the Pacific into the Pacific coast right now, and that is eventually going to transition into a likely severe weather event here for us in the east. So this is what's left of the current storm that we're talking about. This is Saturday afternoon, so New Year's afternoon, about 2 o'clock in the afternoon here. Widespread rain from sections of the Big Bend in Florida, stretching northward all the way up through Ohio, Pennsylvania, and New York, with areas along the Mississippi River clearing out pretty good by New Year's Eve afternoon. All right, so as we move this into the evening time here on New Year's Eve, sun beginning to set, starting to clear out here along the Appalachian chain here in the southern bits. Even the Carolinas working on clearing out a little bit. So luckily this has trended a little bit quicker recently. So it should clear out by the time we hit midnight here in a pretty big section. I'd still expect some rain into areas of New York City through Boston and up into Maine as you go towards the midnight hour on New Year's Eve, but clearing out pretty good in most other areas here into the southeast and Ohio River Valley. Luckily, that rain will finally move out of even the northeast as we get into New Year's afternoon, with really just some leftover rain and snow on the back end into sections of Maine and New Hampshire and Vermont. So with that, what we then have is this next system here getting going into the Rockies. And this is going to be your Sunday afternoon. So New Year's Day, pretty clear across the east here, clearing out from the rain that comes through before. But as for areas here to the Four Corners, really the system's getting going. Heavy rain in the lower elevations and some pretty intense mountain snow ongoing even into Arizona and New Mexico here with that just really continual push of moisture in from the Pacific. So watch the evolution of this. We're going to be using the Euro model, as you can tell here in the top right, to look at the evolution of this storm. But as that begins to push through the Four Corners, eventually out into the plains, this is now going to be Monday morning. This has trended a bit slower. So yesterday we were talking about this area on Monday. Wouldn't be surprised that now the trend is more towards this area, but we're still at the 5-day mark. So the timing is going to change, but right now what's important is to look at the overall threat and the general area that is likely to be impacted by this. And honestly, I'll tell you, it's likely we're going to have a multi-day severe weather event, although less extreme the further east you get. I would expect these storms to track really from the southern plains all the way through the Carolinas, likely going into next week. All right, so we'll go ahead and look at this now. This is Monday afternoon, and as you can see, I mean, we really get this convection going here into sections of the Ark-La-Tex region, a lot of the same areas that are expecting some severe storms today, although this will likely be a much bigger event. And even on the Euro here, you can already tell this almost looks like a bit of a discrete mode. This doesn't really look like a line of storms, but yet coverage of discrete cells from Dallas really all the way into sections of Louisiana and Mississippi as well as up through Arkansas. So that's Monday afternoon, and we'll get into the specifics of what kind of ingredients we're working with on this after we kind of continue to evolve the storm here with Euro. So this will be Tuesday night now. That will likely spread further to the east, but also we see that we're getting some snow to break out on the north side of the system. As you can tell, we have some cold Canadian high pressure working in here from the north, and we'll likely have a very dynamic system here. So severe weather will continue here through the Mississippi River Valley here up towards areas even as far north potentially as southern Illinois with this system, and then potential blizzard conditions ongoing in areas that once again are getting some snow today. And that's a pattern you'll notice whenever we have this Pacific air coming in. A lot of the areas get the same thing over and over again with this sort of storm track. It's tough to get that track to budge. So if you've seen snow in the past couple days, or if you've seen rain in the past couple days and going into the next couple days, that pattern will likely repeat itself going in through the next week or two. So this is Tuesday morning here. This is January 3rd. Still have storms ongoing here into the Dixie Alley regions, and even heavy rain and wind pushing up through the Great Lakes with very heavy snow further to the north and west towards the Great Plains. So we'll continue this evolution. This is going to be Tuesday afternoon, potential severe weather threat moving further into Dixie Alley and even into the Carolinas at this point. And once again, a heavy swath of snow somewhere here into the northern plains with very rainy, windy conditions in further areas to the north and the east. And likely this is going to continue to impact areas through Wednesday, even rain still here into the Carolinas and the mid-Atlantic, before eventually this will try to pull out as we go into later next week. But we'll have to look at different kind of, precipitation types as we get into this. Still a week out, so we're a bit far away to look into what kind of precipitation is likely to fall in areas of the northeast here. Well, let's go ahead and now look at let's take more of a zoomed in approach here into the severe weather threat that comes with this. So this is day 5 now. So this is today's Thursday. So this would be for Monday and the severe weather threat that comes in with Monday. As you can see, compared to yesterday, this has gotten bumped further to the west. So this now includes areas like Dallas, even Tulsa, Oklahoma, just about into this yellow area now. So let's go ahead and look at the actual ingredients we're working with here. Once again, with the Euro. The Euro has become very bullish with this. Right now, what you're looking at here is going into this first system. You'll see a little bit of surge of dew points and moisture into the southeast before what really comes going into next Sunday. And then this is Monday going into Monday afternoon. And I mean, this is quite an impressive moist sector for the very beginning of January. This is really spring-like stuff here, looking at this map, and even dew points approaching 70s here through sections of the deep south into Louisiana, eastern Texas, Mississippi. So very impressive numbers here in terms of dew points that we're working with for this to be very early January. And as you can tell, that moist sector will continue to lift northward and eastward as we go through the end of next week before eventually clearing out going into the end of next week. So that's the dew points. Go ahead and look at the shear that we're looking at with this now. We'll go ahead and skip this. As you can tell, looking over here, that system's going to dive in from the Pacific and really start digging as it gets into the four corners here and get going before eventually likely becoming negatively tilted as it gets into the plains here, which really spells a lot of trouble for these areas. Let's go ahead and move this to Monday afternoon, though. Back this up just a little bit for you. Yeah, about there. So shear here in these areas, not off the charts, but plenty to work with those dew points that we looked at. So definitely enough to cause severe weather, and that will then eventually move through areas of the Carolinas as we go into the middle of next week. All right, so Cape now, this is just the, instability that the storms will have to work with. Again, a little bit of plume of Cape going into tomorrow with this little bit of surge of moisture. But as you can tell here, look at this lift up out of the Gulf of Mexico here as we go into next Monday. And this is Monday afternoon. I mean, this is pretty good amount of Cape to work with here. Once you get past 1,000 here in the bar, that's really whenever you get into really good conditions for storms to develop. So getting in excess of 1,000, even some areas maybe past 1,500 here on the latest Euro. Really spells a lot of trouble. And then that cape continues to move, although weakening into areas of the Deep South and potentially even the Carolinas as we go into Tuesday and Wednesday. All right, so now let's go ahead and look at lapse rates. I talked about this a little bit in yesterday's video and actually got a comment which had a really good idea of making a separate video to kind of explain some of these terms. So I'll look into doing that here into the future. But just to give another rundown, a quick one of the lapse rate, it's pretty much a measure of how easy it is for air to rise. And the easier it is for air to rise, the more likely it is to create unstable conditions, and the better it is for thunderstorms to form. Is kind of the quick, simple answer on that. But I'll try to go more in depth on some of these definitions in another video at another time. But this video is obviously already going pretty long just because of how much we have to talk about here. So lapse rates going into Monday afternoon here. Pretty high numbers here as you get into sections of Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas. These areas definitely have some pretty high numbers to work with. Again, nothing off the charts, but still plenty enough to work with. And then that will, of course, eventually work its way into the Carolinas, just like the other ingredients will going into Tuesday and Wednesday. So regardless of the severe weather, we have a very rainy pattern setting up. So I want to show you the overall thinking on this rain going into the next week. So this is from now till exactly 1 week out, 168 hours. So this is combined with the system that is moving through right now, as well as this new one that is beginning on the west coast. So you can really see a bullseye here in the southeast in terms of the eastern half of the country, in terms of this precipitation, upwards of maybe 8 inches of rain in places, with maybe localized higher amounts where you get some training to develop and have bigger problems there. And of course, just still, I mean, look at this just absolute train of moisture coming into California here. Although this is much needed rain there, you definitely don't want to see it all at once. And a lot of this will be mountain snow, of course, but in the areas that normally see rain, it will be rain. And in the areas that have been seeing snow, it will continue to be so. All right, so let's talk long range a little bit here once we get past this current pattern. Let me just make sure my next map is what I think it is. Yes, it is. Okay, so this is the current situation. Again, we have troughing here in the west and ridging in the east, which is helping to bring warm temperatures in the east and very wet and more average temperatures into the west. So we'll go ahead and move this ahead. This is now going into Monday. As you can see, this is that system that is going to cause problems. This is Saturday night coming into California. And then once we get into Sunday afternoon, moving through the four corners here, before eventually Monday working its way into the plains, which is really going to help bring in that warm, unstable Gulf air that we're going to have to worry about. So that's the pattern for the next storm. But as we get past that into the long range, it really looks like we kind of find more of an average kind of weather here for January, although still above average. A lot less, I guess, overall craziness going on, especially once we get here into the middle sections of January. It looks like the pattern kind of miles out and gets a little less defined as we get into the future. So while we are dealing with this crazy warm right now, this will eventually moderate as we get into January. So we'll move. This is the temperature anomaly, so how far above or below the average temperatures are compared to what it normally should be this time of year. So let's go ahead and move this ahead a little bit into, let's go into next week. So this would be on the severe weather day next Monday. As you can tell, above average temperatures anywhere from 10 to 20 degrees, maybe even 25 in isolated spots across a big chunk here, and above average temperatures throughout the entire east with cooler than average temperatures in the west. But once we get through the system next week, as you can tell here, we are going to have a couple of shots of cold air. I think after this system moves through, we get maybe just a little bit of Canadian high pressure to move in. As you can tell, we get a little bit of blue to try to work its way here in even the southeast. Although nothing insane, temperatures, of course, will at least be moderated here throughout the east. And once we get into the long range, although still above average here throughout much of the country, the pattern, again, kind of gets a little less defined. And now you're looking at only temperatures really around 5 degrees above average once we get into the long term. So while we are dealing with some hectic weather right now, I would expect temperatures to generally moderate over time and get a little less extreme as the pattern has been. But that's all I have for today. If you have any questions or any feedback, let me know in the comments. And again, just want to say thank you to everyone for tuning in today. And if you've tuned in for any of my previous videos. So I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you all tomorrow.